Imagine walking through a museum and looking up at the skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus rex. Its jaws could crush bone. Its senses were finely tuned. Its ancestors ruled Earth for more than 160 million years. And then a strange question enters your mind. Was any dinosaur intelligent enough to build a civilization? Not simply to use a stick or recognize another animal, but to construct cities, harness energy, manufacture machines, and transform the planet. Could an industrial civilization have appeared millions of years before humans, and then disappeared so completely that we have never found it? There is no evidence that this happened. But surprisingly, the question itself is scientifically useful. In 2018, NASA climate scientist Gavin Schmidt and astrophysicist Adam Frank published a serious peer-reviewed paper asking whether an ancient industrial civilization could still be detected in the geological record. They called their thought experiment the Silurian Hypothesis. The name came not from the real Silurian geological period, but from Doctor Who, where the Silurians are an intelligent reptilian species that lived on Earth before humans. The scientists were not claiming that such creatures actually existed. In fact, they strongly doubted that any earlier industrial civilization had ever developed here. Their real question was more subtle. If one had existed tens or hundreds of millions of years ago, how would we know? At first, the answer seems obvious. We would find their buildings, machines, roads, and perhaps their fossilized bodies. But geological time is extremely destructive. Continents move, mountains rise and erode, rivers rearrange landscapes, sediments bury entire ecosystems. The ocean floor is continually created at mid-ocean ridges and destroyed in subduction zones. Almost all present-day oceanic crust is younger than about 200 million years. Any cities built on much older seafloors would probably have been swallowed by Earth's mantle. Objects on land would not fare much better. Metal corrodes, concrete cracks, glass is crushed, and landscapes are stripped away by erosion. Cities cover only a small fraction of Earth's surface, so the chance that a future geologist would drill into exactly the right location would be surprisingly low. Fossils are also much rarer than museum displays make them appear. An animal must die in the right environment, be buried quickly, escape scavengers and chemical destruction, survive millions of years of geological activity, and finally become exposed somewhere humans can find it. Most species that have ever lived probably left no fossils that we have discovered. The dinosaurs existed for an enormous length of time, yet we possess only a tiny sample of all the individual dinosaurs that ever lived. A technologically capable species could, in theory, be short-lived enough to leave very few recognizable bodies. This does not mean that such a species existed. It only means that searching for a fossilized dinosaur engineer would not be the best test. Instead, Schmidt and Frank focused on indirect evidence. An industrial civilization does more than construct objects. It changes the chemistry of an entire planet. Our own industrial age is only a few centuries old, but its geological footprint is already global. Burning fossil fuels has released carbon that is unusually depleted in the isotope carbon-13. This creates a measurable change in the ratio of carbon isotopes in the atmosphere, oceans, and sediments. Industrial agriculture has transformed the nitrogen cycle. Mining and manufacturing have redistributed metals around the world. Fossil fuel combustion has produced distinctive particles of fly ash that have reached remote lakes, the deep ocean, the Arctic, and Antarctica. Humans have also created plastics, pesticides, and synthetic chemicals that natural processes rarely, if ever, produce. Nuclear explosions have spread artificial radionuclides across the planet. Even our domesticated animals may become part of the geological signature. The bones of billions of chickens, for example, could form an unusually widespread and recognizable fossil marker. Millions of years from now, very little of New York, Shanghai, or London may remain. But a future geologist could still discover a thin, unusual layer containing a sudden carbon isotope shift, abnormal concentrations of metals, combustion particles, synthetic chemical residues, and evidence of rapid biological disruption. That combination would be much more persuasive than a single mysterious object. This leads us back to the dinosaurs. If an industrial civilization existed during the Mesozoic era and developed along a path similar to ours, should we see something comparable in ancient rocks? So far, we do not. Geologists have studied rocks from the age of the dinosaurs for many different reasons: to reconstruct climates, investigate extinctions, locate mineral deposits, and understand volcanic events. These rocks contain dramatic chemical anomalies, but none has produced an accepted package of evidence pointing to industry. There are no confirmed synthetic materials, manufactured objects, or technological radionuclide patterns from the Mesozoic. There is no known layer combining multiple independent markers in a way that requires an industrial explanation. Some ancient events can look strangely similar to what humanity is doing today. The Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, or PETM, occurred about 56 million years ago, several million years after the non-avian dinosaurs disappeared. During this event, a huge amount of carbon entered the atmosphere and oceans. Global temperatures rose by several degrees, the oceans became more acidic, and many deep-sea organisms died out. Could that have been ancient industrial pollution? There is no positive evidence for that interpretation. The carbon release was much slower than modern human emissions, and the event is associated with enormous natural geological processes, including volcanic activity in the North Atlantic region. Magma intruding into carbon-rich sediments could have released vast quantities of carbon dioxide and methane. Other mass extinctions also have well-supported natural explanations. The Permian extinction, the most devastating known mass extinction, coincided with the gigantic Siberian Traps eruptions. The Triassic extinction was associated with volcanic activity as the supercontinent Pangaea began to break apart. The extinction that ended the age of the non-avian dinosaurs was triggered primarily by the Chicxulub asteroid impact, with the Deccan Traps eruptions adding environmental stress. These events involved climate change, ocean acidification, carbon cycle disruption, and extinction. But those signals alone do not indicate technology. Volcanoes, asteroids, and natural carbon reservoirs can produce many of the same effects. A convincing case for an ancient civilization would require something nature has difficulty explaining: persistent synthetic molecules, extremely unusual isotope combinations, evidence of large-scale manufacturing, or several independent industrial signals appearing simultaneously in the same geological layer. No such discovery has been confirmed. There is another major problem with the dinosaur civilization idea. We have no known dinosaur that appears to have possessed human-like intelligence. People sometimes describe Troodon as the smartest dinosaur because it had a relatively large brain for its body, but brain-to-body ratio is only a rough clue, not an intelligence score. Troodontids were probably alert, capable predators with sophisticated senses. That does not make them potential engineers. Tyrannosaurus rex has also entered the debate. One controversial study estimated that it might have possessed billions of neurons in part of its brain, possibly placing it near some primates. Later researchers challenged the assumptions behind that calculation, especially the estimated brain size and the use of bird-like neuron densities. The safer conclusion is that T-Rex was probably a behaviorally complex animal, perhaps more capable than the stereotype of a mindless reptile. But neuron counts cannot tell us whether an extinct animal could plan years into the future, teach complex concepts, or develop symbolic language. Intelligence is difficult to measure even in living species, and large brains alone do not create civilization. A species also needs some way to manipulate its environment. Humans combine intelligence with highly flexible hands, precise grip, social learning, language, and the ability to preserve knowledge across generations. Some dinosaurs had grasping forelimbs, but none is known to have produced tools comparable with those made by early humans. We have found dinosaur nests, tracks, eggs, stomach contents, and even impressions of skin and feathers. Yet we have found no shape tools, controlled fire, mines, engineered structures, or other evidence of cumulative technology. Could an intelligent dinosaur have evolved eventually if the asteroid had missed Earth? Possibly, Evolution has no predetermined destination, but birds demonstrate that dinosaur brains were capable of becoming remarkably sophisticated. Crows can solve multi-step problems, use tools, and remember individual human faces. Parrots can learn categories, imitate sounds, and display impressive social intelligence. Birds are living dinosaurs, so advanced cognition clearly exists within the dinosaur family tree. Given another 66 million years, some lineage might have developed even more complex abilities. But that is speculation about an alternative future, not evidence about the past. There is also an important limitation to the Silurian hypothesis. It assumes that an ancient civilization altered the planet enough to become detectable. A small civilization powered mainly by renewable energy might leave a much weaker signal than modern humanity. Its technology might use materials we have not considered. It could exist briefly, remain geographically limited, and then disappear. Science cannot prove with absolute certainty that no such society ever existed. Absence of evidence is not always evidence of absence, but the larger and more industrial a civilization becomes, the harder it is for that absence to explain. A civilization consuming energy on a global scale would probably modify ecosystems, move enormous quantities of material, and leave chemical changes across many environments. The lack of any convincing technological signature therefore makes a dinosaur civilization extraordinarily unlikely. The Silurian hypothesis is not evidence that dinosaurs built cities. It is a framework for deciding what evidence would be needed before anyone should take that claim seriously. Its authors specifically warned against using unexplained geological events as excuses for unlimited speculation. A civilization should not be proposed simply because one detail remains uncertain. Positive evidence must come first. The most fascinating lesson may actually be about us. Our skyscrapers will fall. Our satellites will eventually leave orbit or be destroyed. Most computers, vehicles, and monuments will disappear. But the chemical transformation created by our civilization could survive long after our languages, borders, and histories have been forgotten. If intelligent beings examine Earth millions of years from now, they may not find a recognizable city. They may find only a narrow boundary in the rocks, a sudden planetary pulse of carbon, plastic, metals, extinction, and radioactive fallout. That is how they may know we were here. So, did dinosaurs have a civilization? Almost certainly not. We have no fossils of technological species, no tools, no structures, and no industrial chemical signature. Every major geological event examined so far has a far better natural explanation. But asking the question reveals something extraordinary. Civilizations are not remembered by what they intend to create. Over geological time, they are remembered by how profoundly they changed their planet.